All right, good evening. Welcome to Newmarket Workshop, Planning Board Workshop. It's 4:35. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All righty, thank you. All right, I think because Mike is here, we might as well start with the sign ordinance revisions. For those at home that aren't aware, I guess there was a Supreme Court ruling regarding electronic signs. Mike, do you want to just walk us through
Let me just say that,
what the background is? Go ahead.
just that the section we want to be looking at is section 4 in the packet that I put together for you, page 6. And I've included the sign definitions, the changes that Mike is suggesting. And in the appendix, there's a 2-page write-up about what the Reed versus Town of Gilbert decision means that was put out by the New Hampshire Municipal Association. That's more for reference for your purposes than anything else. But with that, we'll turn it over to Mike to explain what his recommendations are for the sign ordinance.
All right.
Mike, as you know, is our code enforcement officer and building official. I think everybody knows him. And one of his charges is to administer the signed ordinance on behalf of the
Yep.
town. Okay.
Great.
With that great introduction, Mr. Hoffman.
Thank you, thank you. So with Reed versus Gilbert, it came to light that we cannot regulate signage on the content or the user to a large degree. So we can't treat one type of business differently from another business or commercial interest. And furthermore, we can't regulate what is said on signs. So in our ordinance, we did have a number of different things where we're treating one entity differently from another. Real estate signs were specified that they could be such and such a size versus fraternal organizations and social organizations. We can't really do that because that opens the door then to anybody. But we can't regulate free speech or commercial speech. We can regulate the size and design of signs. There are
And we have to be consistent.
We have to be very consistent, and it's essentially treating all commercial speech the same. So we can't say it has to be a local product only. Any product can be advertised on that sign. So we looked at a number, and we also had a couple of other things that we noted. Actually, one of the sign companies mentioned to us we had some sizes that they didn't think we intended to have. One of them was the pendant sign, which there was no regulation or smaller regulation on pendant signs, something that would stick out of the building. So in the downtown area, we could have a 32-square-foot pendant sign, which would be absolutely huge. And she said, I don't think this is what you meant, but just so you know, it's not covered in the ordinance. And so it's absolutely something I thought we should address. Most of the signs are a lot smaller than that, but we did recently have one that was pretty good size, and really no choice but to approve it because it's permitted. So I thought that it would be important for the planning board to look at those sizes. And additionally, we had other things as far as illuminated signs being allowed in all districts except for the M2, M2A. So all of a sudden it threw into my mind, R1, would we really want an illuminated sign, generally illuminated sign in Moody Point? You know, it's not our intention, but you know, certainly we don't want that. So it was an opportunity to look at some of these and try and clean up some of these. And I'm actually looking for in the handout.
So this is effective immediately, right?
Very last page.
Mike, in the,
The one that has the top of this, it says,
All right.
Second to last page.
I thought for sure I had it with me. Yeah.
You're talking about,
Are you in Diane's packet?
you're looking for the language?
Yeah, the
Oh, the
language.
language
Okay,
on
I've got
page
it. I've got
6.
another copy here.
It's on page 6 of the
Yeah, I've got,
amendments.
yeah. So I ended up with one document which I just ended up highlighting and any changes. And the first one I came to was a neon style, neon sign. We have a lot of LED signs now. Neon's kind of gone out and LEDs are replacing it. I think the intent is in a bulb style light, like the classic open sign. And we do have some others that say manicures, we have some that say tattoos, some of that sort. But again, we can't really regulate the speech, the content, but we can regulate the size and design of the sign. So I thought we might want to do something with that. Neon, I just wrote neon style, but it could be illuminated lamp style sign or something of that sort. The other thing was, we had a situation with an individual who had a sale in his garage every weekend all summer long, and he would attach his signs to, actually our stop signs, which is another issue, which we've gotten a traffic code, he can't attach anything to our stop signs. But it was also interfere with sight paths at intersections. So we worry a little bit about what's the line in the sand between a yard sale that happens every single weekend and a commercial occupation in the residential neighborhood. And I know some communities will say how many yard sales you can have in a year. Some actually require you to get a permit. I don't know if we want to go down that road. But it might be good to come up with a number, whether it's 2, 4, 6. It really doesn't matter, but it's put out there for you guys to consider and think about how many yard sales is reasonable.
But this would restrict the signage associated with yard sale. It would not restrict the yard sale.
Right, that's
He could do a
correct.
yard sale, again, every weekend, but he can only put signs up 4 times.
Yeah, that's true, and this, the way it's written now, yes. And it
This
would
is
have
a
to be
sign
different-
ordinance, it's not, that's a different.
Right, that'd have to be a different
Just to-
ordinance.
Be a vendor's
Right.
ordinance or something.
Right.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
obviously, if you don't put signs up and you have a yard sale, you're not gonna sell anything. so-
Right,
But,
right.
but the intent, I just wanna make sure that this is the sign, not restricting the use. It's-
absolutely,
it's the
yeah,
sign.
this is,
Yep,
right,
okay.
right.
And I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
4 times a year, I think, is more than reasonable. What's everybody else think while we're just going through
I
this?
agree.
everybody?
The committee actually modified it, it was at one point 2 weekends a year.
Oh, right, okay.
So we
Yeah.
thought it would be
Yeah.
better to recommend 4 days.
Yep, okay.
They can do 2 weekends or?
Or 4 Saturdays or whatever, yeah, okay. I'm sorry, Mike, please.
No, please. The next item, and this was written a while ago before my discovery that real estate signs really couldn't be treated as differently. We have a little bit of, and we've always had this, we can't allow signs on the public way without creating a real Pandora's box. It's often done with real estate signs. However, if we allow real estate signs, we have to allow every other product known to man to advertise in that same location, which that can be kind of problematic. And especially since some, and I've got a collection, I think you've all seen my office, mattress sales, paving, everything. I've got quite the collections. Yeah, absolutely. It's quite a few. So, and of course, they always put them in intersections where you have to look at them, so they're blocking the view of oncoming traffic. So we do not allow any commercial speech signs in the public way. The state of New Hampshire has an exception to that, and it's their blue sign program. But the DOT puts them up. They meet the traffic code as far as location, all that. But as a rule, we just shouldn't be allowing any signs. We don't even allow political free speech signs on the municipal property, which political free speech is about the broadest free speech there is.
And what's the state's policy on that, Mike?
State actually commits political free speech signs on all state right-of-ways, which does create a little confusion for some people in Newmarket because of Grant Road being a state right-of-way.
Tax falls
They also
Private
did,
state,
they also
private
had a,
local.
was it 5 or 6 years ago, that guy over in Stratham was
Yeah.
pulling up all the signs which were on state right away, and the guy lost in court. The guy-
Yeah.
The state had no interest in enforcing their own regulations, so this guy had no right to take them up, right?
Right, they're still a private property, that's why I hold them, because I hold them for 30 days, notify them. They're allowed to come get them. What Dover does is they charge them the staff time if they want to come get their sign back. It's a $1 sign, and they charge them $100 to come get it. Nobody comes and gets it.
Right.
Oh, wow.
Right.
You know?
Well, I mean,
I've
I'm
only
okay
had-
with that. I mean, obviously, to me, that's common sense that you can, any signs you put up have to be on your own property, basically.
Yeah,
But this
or with the
isn't,
property owner's permission.
right.
Right.
But this isn't, this isn't an enforcement issue with you. I assume the only time you ever hear about this is if somebody complains that there's a sign
Yeah,
blocking their view, or if you drive by a sign
Or if
that's in
he
the
sees
way
it.
or something.
yeah, I pull them
Yeah.
down pretty regularly, and I've given everybody the word that has done it. I said, this is a $100 fine every time you do this, per day, per occurrence. And they don't usually show up
Once-
again.
Once they're notified.
Once they're notified.
Notified,
Yeah.
yeah. Because technically by federal law, federal elections, you have until the second Friday, because the elections are always on a Tuesday, you have until the second Friday after the election to remove your political sign.
Yep, 10 days, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mike, your signs may not be located in the public right of way. If you think about all like the downtown signs that protrude out
The
from a
sandwich
building.
signs.
No,
Oh.
I'm thinking the
Like
sandwich sign should be
sidewalk
one,
signs?
but if you're protruding from the building, that's the public right of way, the
Right.
airspace. So I
And we
think
do
we
That's
might
the
wanna.
speak to
projecting
that.
sign, though.
In our ordinance,
We
it does
talk
speak
about
to
that.
that.
So,
But it's,
So should we say unless otherwise permitted?
Well,
No.
well, you have an inconsistency here. First, you're saying signs may not be located in the public right of way, and then we're gonna have another section in the ordinance saying that they are. I think it should be clarified, so that we don't have
Let's-
something
I
that's.
think
That's
there's
a good point.
certain-
Let's wait till you get to that other point, Mike. Is there another point in here where we allow those?
yeah, the pendant signs go over the public sidewalk.
Which is,
It's
Sign
addressed,
projecting
and it's
to the
in-
wall of a building.
It is an alternative to the freestanding sign, and that's discussed on page
What?
11, no, hang on. Page 13, up at the top, paragraph 3. And it's at page 13, at the very, of the sign ordinance, which is paragraph, fourth section, page 13.
yep.
Okay, at the very top, there's a paragraph 3, where it says that projecting signs may be substituted for a freestanding sign. And that's where we address those signs currently.
So maybe this is worded as non-projecting signs. May not be located
Yeah.
in the public right of way.
Yeah, that's a good point, Val. And there is a definition for a projecting sign that's in the definition section, and I've added those to the very beginning of the sign section.
I have a
Yeah.
question. Freestanding sign, a self-supporting sign not attached to any building. That's just if they have a pole in the ground and it's
Right.
attached to it.
Right.
Okay. And then also with the, what we just discussed, the projected, is that what we're calling a projected
Yep.
sign? It says shall not exceed the 8 square feet, but I don't think we put back in here that it has to be 8 feet. Clearance at the bottom of the sign has to be at least 8 feet from the walkway.
Right.
That's not in here.
Isn't that someplace else in the ordinance?
Why don't we
Mike?
wait till we get there, Rosie? Let's go through
Yeah.
this, just so we don't get confused.
Well, I thought you were just talking about the projected signs, and that it pertains.
Well, no, we're talking about the
Talking about
other
number
one, just
nine.
to
Oh,
try to
okay.
conform with that.
Okay, so what are we talking about now?
We're just,
We're still on
Trying
number
to-
9, the bottom of page 8.
Page,
yep,
okay.
Right.
and it was suggested by Val that we say non-projecting signs instead of just signs in general, so it's clear we're not talking about projecting signs that are allowed elsewhere in the ordinance.
Right.
What was that again, Diane? I'm sorry.
Okay, at the very bottom where it says signs may not be located in the public right-of-way,
Uh-huh.
it was suggested that we clarify that the signs that are being referred to here are non-projecting signs, so that they're not the
Okay.
overhanging signs
Right.
that we were talking about earlier.
So if you have a sign that's a non-projecting sign which isn't on a wall, then you can't put it in the right-of-way. So this basically gives the exception for the projecting signs, which we address later in the regulation, right?
Right.
Okay.
Right,
I'm
and
good
that
with that.
would be design-based, so, because it's a projection sign and you are, so we do have that ability in my,
So if you're
I
talking
think.
about exceptions, though, on the next page, the sandwich board sign is also an exception.
right.
Well, yep, no, we get there, you're right.
So maybe maybe the language there should be unless otherwise.
Permitted,
Unless otherwise permitted.
Under number
specifically
9?
permitted,
Yeah.
yeah.
I guess it's within this ordinance.
Yeah, unless otherwise permitted within this ordinance. Okay, so now we're on to sandwich board signs, Mike?
Well, I think
well,
maybe
the
the
next
directional
page.
signs for disabled people is just changing from 4 square feet to 2 square feet.
Oh, I'm sorry, I couldn't see that,
Okay.
yep.
Yeah, 4 square foot sign is really designed for somebody traveling at roadway speeds, 45 miles an
Yeah.
hour.
Disability,
And
you're
we
right
actually
there.
have a case of that with the insurance company over there. It's a very big, do not enter
Oh.
sign. So it looks a little out of place in the parking lot, but.
Yep. Okay.
Let's see, and in announcement board, message boards, they are a little problematic, because if we allow them, we're allowing them to write anything they want on them. And there are a number of cases that have occurred in the state where there's a lot of fairly vulgar speech or fairly undesirable free speech on these signs. And if you look at Willow Street coming in Manchester, there's one coming off the off-ramp, and it's, will say things about former governors and senators and things like, and very offensive, but not, there's nothing that they can do about it because they allow message board signs. And same thing is occurring in Somersworth and a couple of other towns. So once we allow message boards, we can't regulate what they say. And they can swear. They can say whatever swear words they want.
So is your
Well, actually,
recommendation?
there's some question mark on that
Yeah,
one.
so your recommendation is to eliminate
Message
12
board signs.
message board?
Now, the town itself is already exempted by own zoning,
Right.
so we don't have to do that.
Well,
So-
like the thrift shop puts out a message board.
Right, so that is
So
is
if
it
we
really a
re- if
thrift
we
shop, even though
remove
the church is
12,
running its
That's a public
commercial?
service organization, though. the
So
thrift shop.
you're
Well, no,
asking
but
to,
Yeah, but we
was
we don't
confused.
distinguish
Are
between them,
we-
though.
Right,
There's nothing on number 12, but now you're talking about doing something
You're
about
saying
it?
to
So what's the
remove that?
recommendation?
I didn't pick up on the
Yeah.
fact that that was a change.
Are you looking to,
that's, well, most of this is for me to just bring to your attention and for you to decide what you want to do with it. The other thing
Right.
I'll say is that some of the code compliance, some of other towns I've looked into, they've said that they really can't make themselves read-proof, or they don't want to make themselves read-proof. They're, to limit themselves, actually Dover, no, it wasn't Dover, it was somebody else, because Dover's going to do it anyway. They're not going to allow, the prices on a gas station
yeah,
are considered to be a commercial message.
right.
So if you don't allow any message board signs, you're not allowing them to change the price with a digital message center, which,
So why don't we say digital announcement message boards, so that the gas stations that we have and other public service
Yeah.
I
facilities
don't know if we can, I don't know if legally we can distinguish between a
I
digital
don't think you
message board
can.
and a normal
That's a
message.
big one the lawyers
That's
are
a
battling with.
Debating that.
What?
Because a gas
of-
station
Whether
could
digital
technically,
is an
that's,
electronic digit or
What,
a
because of
paper
read?
digit?
Right,
Read,
right.
as I read, I heard you saying other things, as I read, it's only prohibiting signed content. It doesn't say anything else.
So once you allow a
Right.
form of sign, you can't regulate whether it's a number or alphanumeric. It could be either. That's the concern, and that's actually what, in one article, the lawyers are kind of arguing with each other. Which way would it go? Well, we don't
What?
know.
Right.
But back on,
We're talking about a type of sign or the signed content?
Well,
type of sign.
Type of sign.
well,
That-
I
But
think
you're not
right
supposed
now
to
we're
have
talking
different,
about 12,
Yes.
which is message
Message
boards
boards.
relative to civic organizations.
and we're saying that
So, Mike, what I'm hearing from you is you're not recommending any changes, but you're bringing it to our attention that some communities are basically removing the permitting message boards.
Right, and the reason that they're doing that is the fear that somebody will come in and say, you allow it, therefore I can. Actually, the case that was
You
brought
can't
up.
limit it
And you
to a,
can't
to a
discern
Civic
it.
organization.
organization.
You can't discriminate
that's-
against certain uses, in other
That's
words.
the part that's really getting into muddied waters.
But at some point, we say tough, and if somebody wants to sue us, let them sue us.
Well, that's what some communities are saying. They're just saying we
Make it as
can't.
reasonable as practical as possible. and,
Right.
You know,
Right, even the time temperature clock was the example I read. Once you have a time temperature clock, you open yourself up to all digital message centers.
Can
So-
you, in your definition, define a sign that if it's a clock and temperature, it's a different type of sign? Can
They,
you define that so that it's not broadcasting a message, it's simply displaying?
No, because then they.
No,
come
because
to-
that's
that's-
that's
that's the court
content-based.
case.
You can't,
Right, you can't.
you can't restrict
Even
the
for
content.
time? Even for
That's what
time
they're
and
saying.
temperature?
That's what some of the articles are saying, yes.
You can't,
Yeah,
it
but
has to
time
be
and temp-
content neutral.
Diane, did you provide us with the legal,
But that content
Unread?
is,
Yes.
okay,
I know.
it's not,
Third to
it's
last
not a
page.
human it's not a,
what?
it's not an opinion
Commercial
or a
message.
My
message.
appendix.
Right.
Third to last
basically-
page.
Yeah,
Projecting data, so
Yeah.
I would think you should be able to specify in your definitions of sign,
Find it?
Which one?
clock
Third to the
and
last
weather-based
Go on,
sign.
we do currently.
Versus anything else that
right there.
broadcasts a customized, because that's not a customizable message.
Right.
Other than Fahrenheit or centigrade.
Yeah.
Or 24-hour time or,
Yeah.
12-hour clock.
but I think the ruling is a message is a message.
That's
free
kinda what
speech.
most
That's
people are
free speech. Some
saying.
people want to say temperature and time, and I want to put a nasty message on it.
Saying
You put your temperature and time, I can put a
Blanking hot
nasty
out here,
message.
you know, and,
I think that's the.
yeah.
Yeah,
And that's why some towns are saying, we're not going to go read proof. They're just not comfortable with it. They're gonna say, we're gonna become read resistant.
Yeah.
Take your chances that they
Yeah.
don't
Because
get
technically
sued.
what you're saying is, you know, the Irving station downtown, rather than put their price on their sign, could put up a nasty message if they want to.
Yeah,
But we
and-
can't stop them.
Right,
And so you can't prevent yourself from every eventuality.
right, exactly, yeah,
Protect yourself against every,
yeah.
but this still grandfathers in your bank or whatever that's already got that.
Anybody who's got vested rights, but the new guy coming in, the Cumberland Farms that wants to take over,
I'm okay leaving 12 the way it is, and if we end up with somebody thinking it's important enough to sue us over something at some point, let them,
Well,
because I think we do want to allow message boards for civic organizations, and if that's not right, let somebody sue us.
We know that our current civic organizations use them.
Yes, absolutely.
so this is, what's the header on this? It says, application, exempt signs. The following signs do not require a sign permit from the town and are not subject to the setback requirements. So you're saying,
We're on page 9.
I know, but what's the heading on that? The numbers all fall under 402 application process.
Exempt signs.
Except as,
Exempt from the
These are all exempt.
sign
okay,
ordinance.
so
the
these
signs.
are all exempt signs we're talking about.
Which is what we want to. We want to exempt.
Directional sign, legal notice.
And
But
just-
number 12, I think, can be interpreted that it's allowed.
It is allowed, it's under the
It's allowed,
exempt.
it's
That's what
exempt.
So we want to leave it alone. We want to leave it alone for civic organizations to allow them to do that.
It's
That's
not-
under,
It's exempt.
It's exempt from being excluded.
It's exempt from sign permit regulation, period.
right.
So long as it
So it-
doesn't exceed 12 square feet.
So if it's exempt, then I don't see how there could be a constitutionality issue with it. If you're regulating it, then it would be one thing.
right.
So 12 is exempt, that you don't need
permission to put out
permission to put it out.
a religious
As
institution
long
or a
as you're
civic
public
organization.
service, religious
Right.
institution,
Like
and
the
it's
thrift
not
shop.
over 12 square feet.
Yeah, Mike, my
exempt.
only question is, where do they come up with the square footage? How do those get defined? Is that
Well,
The
just,
town decides.
This was from our previous, anything in the black print was a previous ordinance, so it's just, and then the red print is my edits. So the 12 square feet, I don't know where that really came from.
I mean, are there any standards that kind of say, what sign sizes are or should be? I'm just wondering if that ends up getting questioned at some point. I got a
And it varies from community to community.
Yeah, yeah, there are some standards just from optical point, what size letter you can read at what distance, but nothing that's enforceable at all. The only thing I would say about even churches, if they're doing something commercial, if they're doing a thrift shop, that's actually a commercial activity. So that is commercial speech. Now, having services is not a commercial activity. That's a little different.
Well,
I'm
let's-
okay with leaving 12 alone.
Yeah.
Just, we give them the exemption, and again, if somebody wants to complain because we gave them the exemption,
Can we,
So be it.
can we put, to clarify 12, can we put, with the message area not to exceed 12 square feet only on the property? I think only, because people might read this and
And so you can have them off-site.
no.
only on the property of public service.
I actually think that then you're saying that this specific one can't be off-site, but all the others might be able to be off-site.
Right.
It
Yeah,
always
I think
have to be on
Just
your own
keep on.
property.
It has to be,
You
I'm
know,
okay with
it's-
it the way it is. I think it's,
yeah, I think it's fine.
I think
Yeah.
it's clear.
Yeah.
have you had anybody complain about these, Mike? I guess, any way,
Message
shape, or
boards,
form?
yes.
Message
Yeah,
board.
The
The
digital
library.
message boards.
The librarians,
The library just put a new one up.
Yeah, and they didn't even
under
have
the
to.
old system,
And
they,
they're still actually,
I should
it's
say
still
the
a message
former
board, it's
library.
just, it just looks better.
Numerical, it's not digital.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
not digital.
Yeah.
No, it's,
Okay, I'm all for just moving forward. Let's
Okay.
There's consensus.
keep the roll going. So your next edit is at 15, awnings and messages.
I struck out 14 sign for fraternal social clubs, local
Oh.
service agencies, philanthropic.
that's
Which
been
I'm-
taken out?
That's a
Oh, okay,
strike.
did that get,
It's in there.
It's in ours.
in there,
It's
okay.
not taken
You're
out.
recommending taking that out?
well, I think it's for your consideration of whether or not it should be taken out. It's regulated, it's creating a different class or group, and I think that that's a question mark. And actually, some of this, the legal counsel might want to weigh in on, you might want to request.
Oh, we can just leave it out, and if someone comes up asking for it, we can get a legal opinion then.
That's a good point.
Or leave it in if somebody comes up complaining, get a legal opinion.
No, because this allows them to do it,
Right.
and we want to curtail the use of certain signs.
Yeah, it's supposed to be.
I mean,
content.
I guess the question is if the Zimbabwe Social Club wants to have a beer tent, do we want to let them have, beer sales?
Well, this is specifically says which identify meeting times and locations. This is specific
Yeah,
to.
yeah, that's
So
true.
there's a meeting on such and such a date at such and such a spot. That's it.
This is like the Rotary sign that would
Yeah.
say where the club meets and
Yeah.
what day and time.
Yeah.
That's what this falls
And
under.
as Eric says, I don't think we can be read-proof.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are we gonna do?
I say leave it in.
Take it out?
I say leave it in.
Leave it in?
The next one, 15, is the awnings, and that's the, well, there was a restaurant in town, there is a restaurant in town that has been a big fight about the, from my understanding, about translucent awning material and backlighting it. It creates a sign, internally illuminated sign effect, but it's a translucent awning. And that's been a little bit of, I guess, a bone of contention for some, and it's probably something we don't want to replicate. It's essentially an internally illuminated sign shaped like an awning.
So the awning shall not be of translucent material. That's really what we're talking about.
Right.
The idea is not to have more than that one.
Well, it's just, right, exactly, yeah, everybody's vested who's got it already, so there's
Right.
not much we can do there, but,
Do we have one in town already?
Yeah.
Yeah,
yeah, Jade
Fine.
Guard.
Oh,
we have two, actually. Roma
The-
Joe's has one, but we asked them
neon
not to
signs?
light the light, and they agreed not to do that.
That's kind of translucent, so it looks like a sign. It's you
It's
Okay.
indirectly lit
Because the
from
ones that, like
behind.
Riverworks has, I love those.
Yes,
Tho-
yes.
Those are
That's what
really.
Oh,
we
and that's
want,
actually
more like-
encouraged
Yeah.
somewhere else in the ordinance, it's awnings with, like Morelli's has the cannabis, Morelli's on the bottom of their awning. But,
Okay,
It's-
so I'm fine with that, saying we don't want any translucent awnings. Everybody okay with that?
Yep.
Let's move on to
Should we say,
17.
it shall not be a translucent material or lit? Because it's the lighting of the translucent.
No, because if
No?
it's not translucent, you want it to be lit, so
Okay,
you can
so
see
they can
underneath,
see
so it's not a
underneath.
dark spot
Okay.
underneath. so.
Okay.
And then the sandwich board signs, now that's something that goes back and has been unofficially walked by for a long time, since before I got
Yep.
here.
Yep.
And it was a former town administrator that said, keep walking, to a former code enforcement officer.
Yep.
So it'd be a lot more comfortable if we actually had it in our regulations, what the rules were, rather than just kind of having you get a hall pass as long as it's a wooden sign.
Yep.
So, and what I happened to notice since doing this is that different towns have different things, and certainly Exeter seems to be probably the nicest, and they require it to be a chalkboard-style sign. And some of the vendors use something called liquid crayon, so it doesn't wash off if it rains. And those look great. So, I think, and so we looked at their ordinance, and they limited the height and the size, whether any balloons or anything could be hanging off of it. Theirs, nothing can be hanging off. They can't have balloons or streamers or any moving thing off of the chalkboard-style sign. And they regulate it to less than 3 feet tall, 2 feet wide. And,
I'm fine with this. I mean,
Yeah.
This is just giving us some
Something to
definition
start
of
with.
the size of a sandwich board sign, basically, because now currently there's nothing.
right, and originally, the only place we have some sidewalk restriction language is in our cafe ordinances, which only require a 36-inch path,
Yep.
which is really, really narrow.
Yep.
36 inches is nothing. If people really did that, we'd get a lot of complaints.
Doesn't
I-
need ADA.
I think
Yeah, it doesn't
It-
need
it-
3
does.
feet.
it does for
30 inches, you only need
obstructions,
30
yeah.
inches for an obstruction.
88,
Those
yeah,
5
48,
feet.
and then obstructions down to 36. So that allows for lamp posts and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
telephone poles and
Yeah.
mailboxes.
So,
The intention is not for,
So you're basically saying, and I'll just use as an example, in the downtown restaurants, which has the outdoor dining, okay? And they have a stairway going up into the into the front of the property. And then then they put a sandwich sign out.
right.
As long as there's 48 inches between the sandwich sign and the back of a chair that's in the sidewalk, we're saying that's okay.
That would be the minimum I would recommend. So the other thing that happens, if we go 6 feet,
Inches, I mean.
we would prohibit some people from doing it. Johnny Boston's and the joinery don't have enough room for, joinery really, and I've talked to them numerous times, if you notice, they kind of keep theirs tucked in.
Yep.
It's to keep that 36-inch path, and I think it should be 48 inches, I think,
Yeah.
wherever possible.
So that puts the hammer down on them?
It
On a
keeps
few.
them where they have to kind of tuck it in, but they're just really restricted. And we're trying to make it so they can do business. And
Right.
these things apparently are very important to businesses, and they do boost business, so they're all struggling, and, they all could use a little more business, I should say. So I think it's worth probably allowing something similar to what Exeter allows, and requiring a 48-inch. And if they can't do 48 inches, they can do 46, they can get a variance.
So you're saying with the chalkboard restrictions and,
Are you thinking of putting chalkboard sign on this?
Yeah, this doesn't talk about, this just talked about it being
Or-
wooden.
right,
Not,
is recommending Exeter, so.
Yeah, and I think that, that's something you might want to consider, is what kind of design criteria you have, whether, currently, I only say it has to be wood, because that's essential, and even that language in the sign ordinance isn't that clear. It's, one place,
Pieces of plywood, back to back, that's
Yeah.
wood. Is that what we're looking
Yeah.
for?
yeah.
As
Yeah.
opposed to
Can
two
we have-
pieces of plastic?
Do we have any design standards anywhere for the signs?
Not really, but I could come up with some if you want.
Well,
And another quick question before, we go any further. All these signs here, you got 17 here, okay? And it says the application process, the written application and $50 fee shall be submitted to the town.
these are exempt.
they're all exempt.
But this is like, every sign that could possibly be put up in town is now exempt. Do you have a section in here where there are signs that they have to have a permit? And if so, where are they?
Yeah, it's all their.
Everything else.
Huh?
It's the
Everything
wall-hung
else,
signs,
that's
it's the
where the
pendant signs.
next section comes.
It's the freestanding signs.
Wall
So it's all of the
signs.
major signs that
Okay,
companies have.
should sandwich board signs, should there be any distinction, again, between illuminated and non-illuminated? Since that seems to be, what happens if someone now comes out with the illuminated
They
sandwich
do that in
sign?
Portsmouth, so you have the sandwich board sign, and then you have the
Light.
solar-powered light that's on the top of it. So now you're seeing it, it's out, it's not, but, I mean, you're saying this is only during business hours, is when the sign can be
Right.
out.
They couldn't put wires to it, I don't.
No,
No.
but you don't need to anymore, even your whole house can be
No,
wireless.
we're
and have all the
LED,
lighting
all you
with
need is a
LED.
battery there, now you get a light. So now what if they do like, the flashing they basically are
Well,
doing the,
That's exempt, that's not exempt, that's prohibited in a different section of the ordinance.
Well,
And nobody could be grandfathered, since they're not permitted, if there's no problem and the business owners act responsibly, then there's not a problem.
Correct.
And if they started being a problem, nobody's gonna be able to claim that these things are grandfathered, I don't think. We should come along and start regulating more tightly if there seems to be a problem. I'm saying that,
I agree with you.
that's really a question to ask,
Yes.
but it seems to me that that's the way it is.
yeah, there wouldn't be any vesting because when they started doing them, they weren't technically legal, so.
Right.
Oh, that's right, because the only
So-
way you're grandfathered is if you were legal at the time that you used
Started it,
the
yeah.
sign.
If you put that in there, then we do open that up a little bit, but.
Well, and Exeter does have it, no balloons, flags, illumination, or other decorations may be placed upon a sandwich board sign. So they do,
I'm okay with that language. I'm not so sure I want to go to having them be a chalkboard style or anything, but I'm okay without having balloons, illumination, any of that other
Yeah.
things that might distract people driving by.
Well, and the other thing is if you have balloons, sometimes they blow across your
right.
4 feet, so.
Yeah.
And they
Right.
distract the
Yeah.
driver or something. you know,
yes.
and-
Wouldn't it also be covered under general design standards, under illumination?
These things
Yeah,
are
but
Yeah,
these
but
exempt.
are
that
exempt.
allows
Yeah.
for
Is
These are all
Exeter's,
exempt.
are Exeter's sandwich signs exempt, or do they require a permit?
They require a permit.
Then why don't we move this into the that don't have these exempt, have them require a permit? And then all of these other items would fall under it, as far as no neon and things of that
Yep.
nature.
I'm okay with that. Are you okay with
I'm
that,
okay
Mike? I
with
mean,
that.
that's
Yeah,
more work for you.
it's more work, but,
That's, yeah, okay.
I mean, we're
I'm fine.
talking 6 businesses probably.
Question, if these wood-style signs aren't illuminated, like, it's still dinner time, but it's dark out, I mean, if you're like,
Yeah,
tripping over them or something.
That's the other thing is,
You
we
know-
want to consider pedestrian safety and part of
Yeah.
this, to make sure people don't
Well, I
trip
mean,
over them.
Should
and-
they be taken in at
Taken in at
sunset?
dusk
Yeah,
or
that's-
I think,
something.
Mike, you said
well,
it's
yeah, they have,
been
there probably should be something about them.
available
I-
during business
But-
hours.
But
Well, the
yeah, I don't think
sidewalks are well lit.
that's not as important from a perspective of, let's say, the joinery, because basically they're under the lighting. You know what I mean? When you go
Yeah,
there, you
but they
see what
lose
the,
they're not in the 48 inches, right?
Yeah, they basically can't have a sign on the
Yeah,
sidewalk. at
what
all.
Exeter says is,
they do, the joinery? Oh, sure.
They're
They
not
do
gonna be
now,
able
but
to
now
now.
they won't.
the
They
illumination
put
can't
them
be,
by the building, so
the
that they're not
illumination can't be
obstructing.
placed on the sign. I mean, we've got illumination all over downtown. It's
Yeah.
just not where you're placing the
Right.
lamp.
So therefore,
There's site lighting and street lighting. so-
right, so you wouldn't wanna have to require the business owner to take the sign in at dusk,
Right.
because
Well,
it
I'm
is
just
lit.
thinking, like, I was walking downtown last night, and it's lit, but it's still, you know.
Surprising, when you,
We had to cut the illumination out of
We
our
call it mood
streetscape
lighting.
project.
Mood
Yeah.
lighting.
Mood
I
lighting.
know that Steve is interested in looking into
You can always
getting
turn
some
those lights back-
grants
you can always turn those
to
lights back
possibly
up.
be able to reinstate that in the
Be
next
nice.
phase
Those
of the
streetlights
project.
those streetlights
Yeah.
are turned down. They're not running
I'm
at
just
full
thinking in
wattage.
the
We turn
interim,
those
I don't
things
want
on.
anybody tripping over any signs.
No.
So-
Agreed.
But
So-
does everyone agree they should be permitted?
I'm fine with having it
I'm
permitted.
fine with that.
I don't want to,
And
I
get
have
some
to say,
revenue.
I understand Mike's suggestion that we have 48 inches, but I don't want to say right now we need 48 inches and have a couple businesses not be able to put them
Right.
out.
you have to
Yeah.
have it for ADA.
I could,
No, you don't.
Why didn't you just have it may not
36
obstruct the
by 88.
sidewalk?
He says it's 36
Of a clear
inches,
travel
what
path.
the
If-
requirement is.
Hmm?
I said, you said it was 36
thir-
inches is the minimum under ADA.
Exactly.
That's the
For an
minimum.
obstruction.
what about 48 where possible and 36 as a minimum?
I agree with that. I'm fine with that.
Okay.
I'm absolutely fine with that.
That way you.
That gives the, I don't want to just exclude a couple of businesses. I don't.
Are they locked out? Somebody's locked out.
Who locked the door?
Right, so we're going to move that to,
Where,
The-
okay, 48 inches where possible,
36
and 36
inches.
inches as a minimum.
I like that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's Janice, oh, good. We can move Janice's stuff over here. You wanna just, well, no, she doesn't
Hi,
have a.
Janice.
Sorry, guys.
No problem.
No problem.
I actually forgot. You got it.
5:15, Janice is here, for the record. All right, so we're gonna move that to the other section and make it, Mike, we're gonna say 48 inches where possible and 36-inch minimum.
And that they have to be
And they'll
permitted?
require a permit.
And they will
Okay.
require a permit,
Yep.
so we get
Okay.
some revenue.
And I'm fine with that.
And revenue, now, we're asking $50 for a permit, Mike. What are other towns getting?
That's not, that's pretty common, 25-50 is pretty much what I've seen.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's just kind of keep rolling on. General design standards now, section 404, page 10, I think is your next suggested edit. Illumination of signs permitted
Yeah,
in
and
the
this is
B1
where
district.
inadvertently, I think we allowed for internal illuminated signs in all districts except for the M2, M2A. B1 district, I'm not sure if it said that or didn't say that before, but, so I think we just want to look at it and decide where do we really want it. I think it's just, permitted in the B1 is what I thought we
Only
really
in
were
the B1.
intending before. Only in the B1,
So that's both North Main and South Main.
yes, yeah.
And can you give an example of which, of signs that are out there that are internally illuminated?
Roma Joe's.
No, Aroma Joe's, we told them they couldn't, but it was kind
Isn't
of,
that illuminated?
it's not illuminated.
Oh, okay,
No,
sorry.
they wanted
They
that
wanted to
under
illuminate
vesting,
it.
but we
Right.
said that wasn't vested.
Right, sorry.
Well, the gas station on North Main Street or the athletic club on South Main Street both have internally illuminated. The hardware store is internally illuminated.
Okay.
And of course, we've got a vested case right downtown with Morelli's.
Okay. Thanks.
But-
I'm fine with that, because, I mean, I don't think there's a call for it to be put anywhere else in town anyways at this point, so. That restricts it to the commercial zone, basically. Okay. Next one, Mike, is the interchangeable letters, message boards
Right,
are
that
not
creates the
permitted.
message board, so, from commercial speech, I think it's probably desirable to not allow a message board. Interchangeable letters or message boards, on the commercial speech side are difficult and problematic, because you can't regulate the speech. They can sell whatever they want.
Okay. Does anybody have any issues with that? All right, let's keep rolling on. Next one's,
Is this, my only question is this specific language, internal letters, and then in quotes, message boards, is there a definition of that? Is that clear? Is there something that,
We don't have I don't think
I
there
don't
is a
think there's a
definition for
definition.
that. There wasn't one for message board. Sign message area,
Message
no?
area, but not message.
No message board, so we need a definition of message board, whether it be movable letters or digital. It should distinguish between the two.
or cover the two?
Yeah.
Probably not, I spelled it.
I'm just checking.
Although I think that,
Well,
I corrected all
isn't
your
this
spelling
coming up
errors,
in,
actually.
isn't this the issue that's coming up in a lot of the case law?
right, and
So
it's.
is there anything out of there that's defining that?
Well, electronic message centers are pretty clearly defined, but I don't know as about the ones where
we
you
slide the
slide
letters
letter
in
in.
and it's
All right.
lit.
Still a
And that's what you
message
mean by
board.
this?
Yeah.
But I think that saying that it's interchangeable letters may spell it out to some degree.
There's an E on that word, interchangeable. Letter.
But does this go here? We have,
Isn't a chalkboard
This is-
interchangeable letters?
this particular section is, the
You could
method
argue
of
that.
internal
Technically.
illumination shall be limited to the following
This is under
techniques.
illumination.
I'm not
Right.
sure it goes
Yeah,
under
that's true too.
this.
Yeah, it may not be the right spot for that.
I mean, it's,
Oh, correct. So, yeah, you don't want, you don't
So find
say
another spot
stuff
for that.
you're not
Okay.
permitting there, right. So that needs to be moved.
that kind of needs its own letter under design standards. Or somewhere else. I guess that's
Yeah, it
gonna
could be its
be,
own letter, it could be.
that's gonna be
B.
L, let's say.
IJ
Sure.
now. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't you just specify between sort of analog and digital,
Yes, they should.
right?
That's what I've been saying,
I mean, I think you really have to in that
You
case.
have to.
Yeah,
because of the
you
technology.
just gotta say, an analog interchangeable sign is when you're physically just moving the letters
Yep.
versus a digital sign that you just is programmable when you
Right,
change.
both are prohibited.
So what would be in so it would be analog and digital, and then in parentheses, interchangeable letter message
Well,
boards
that's what analog is, right?
are not permitted.
So make it all encompassing.
Would you say digital, Peter?
Right.
Digital, okay.
Okay, so interchangeable lettering, analog and digital, in parentheses, interchangeable letters. Message boards are not permitted.
I've never heard
No.
analog.
Well, how else would you describe it?
I don't know, but I'm not sure.
Interchangeable letters.
I'm not sure if people would understand what analog means
Or
in that
manual?
What?
Manual?
Interchangeable letters, I think, is good.
Just
Okay.
leave it in interchangeable letters.
Manually change
Manually
letters,
interchangeable
manually
letters
displayed
versus
letters.
Interchange-
digitally?
No, leave the digital there, because that
Yeah.
means the electron, yeah,
Right.
you
So
gotta,
you'd say manual and digital
yes,
instead of analog?
manual,
And
interchange.
forgive me, but that's different than the other electronic sign that we were talking about earlier? Digital, that was allowed?
No, that was
Where
just
is
for
it?
different non,
Yeah, that was
That was for
for,
churches and.
that's for
For-
churches
yes.
and
Okay.
That's an
nonprofit
exemption.
organizations.
Yeah.
I'm like,
It's
wait a
exemption.
For the,
minute.
for the movable.
yes,
Okay.
yes. Yep.
But we're still under the
Yeah, that
category.
No,
should,
no, I
that should
think
be
we're gonna
moved
make that
out of
letter L.
illumination.
It's L, it's
gonna
gonna be a
be
whole
L.
separate
Gonna be a whole
entity.
Taken out of that subparagraph A, and is gonna be put in its own paragraph L,
Yep.
which is on page 11, right above
Yeah.
Be the bottom of
regulations
page
by
11.
design,
No, digital,
or by district, sorry.
digital and movable.
Everybody okay with that?
Yep, that sounds
Okay,
really good.
um,
Move to L.
Next one is neon. You change it to one neon style, which we had talked about before.
Right.
Because they can be illuminated differently nowadays. And such signs shall not blink or flash. I'm fine with that. Everybody fine with that?
Why can't you use, like, why are you specifying neon at all? Or wouldn't you use something like neon and LED? I mean.
Well,
Ne-
that's fine today. In 10 years, it might be a difference. There may be something beyond LED. So anything of that style that illuminates that style, we want to allow.
The style encompasses all that.
How about if you just put neon / LED and then one neon / LED style? And that covers,
Electronic, digital? I don't know if it's digital, because some neons aren't digital.
Well, you know why, too? He said he was having a big problem, Mike said he was having a big problem with the LED signs, because they all have these little components, you press a button and it flashes and it does this and that, and they all, you go in and talk
Right,
to them, they
it's-
go, well, it didn't, must have gone off and it's
It's however they
on."
turn it on, whether it creates the motion or not.
Yeah,
Right.
It's, you can't really enforce it, because it's got all these mode buttons. You turn it on, press it
well,
twice.
you can enforce it if it
Yeah,
moves and
if
stuff.
I'm there
You
every
tell
day,
them
they turn it
think-
on.
I think in
You're right
general,
by
we're
and
better
see, you
off
have to
being
tell them it has to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
removed.
yeah.
general as possible because technology changes. And rather than have to go back in 5 years because somebody has a new way of illuminating something that we
Argon.
haven't specifically addressed, they
Right.
say, you don't have it in there so I can do it. I say, no, that the intent is that it's,
So that's
Neon
why
mean-
you're saying
neon,
style.
neon means lit. Yeah,
So you
neon
need,
style I'm fine with, because anything that lights up like that,
neon style, style after
style.
Well,
neon.
that's why,
Yeah.
that's what he said
yeah.
originally.
I think
neon
LED,
style.
I mean, I understand what Peter's saying about LEDs, but I think that's getting too specific.
Yeah.
Because LEDs are,
Okay.
today, 20 years from now, they may not exist. They may
And
be
you know,
something
if
else.
someone wants to put a
Okay.
LED, they're
Yeah.
gonna say, well, it says neon style, it's, so they'll,
Yes. Yep.
so B will say neon style, period.
Okay, shall we?
Correct.
And then one neon style window sign shall be
Okay,
permitted.
the third line
Yes.
of that paragraph says neon signs shall be prohibited in all other
but
districts.
that should say
It's
neon
neon
style.
Style, yeah. Okay,
Good.
on to D, blinking, flashing, alternating type of electronic
This is
message
where your
centers or
electronic
digital type
message
lighting
centers
shall
come
be
in.
prohibited. I'm okay with that. That's
Mm-hmm.
no flashing or blinking signs.
Right.
I would say moving and/or animated signs, right? Doesn't that cover?
Well, I
Right.
think moving I mean, I don't think you need animated if you say you don't allow moving, because animation is moving, isn't it? Or do you need the second word?
Yeah, you never know. I would,
Animated
doesn't hurt putting it in.
creates the
in
picture of what we're
C,
talking about.
Are you guys
We
back
have
on C?
motion or signs
We're
which
in
give the
D.
appearance of motion
Yeah,
shall
Flashing.
be prohibited.
Oh, okay, you're talking about C or D?
D.
All right.
Say that, Mike, what you,
I know, but it's Peter, are you back on C?
I was on C.
oh,
Yeah,
oh,
I didn't know
oh,
we were
okay,
doing
oh.
that one, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if any change needs to occur to C. I think that,
Yeah,
Okay.
But I think C covers the need for animation in D.
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. I thought you, I'm sorry, I thought you were talking about D, Peter.
Okay.
So D, I'm okay with that. I
Yeah.
don't want flashing, blinking, alternating signs,
Right.
right?
And then I also struck the alternating time temperature
Yeah.
signs, because that's supposedly the,
Just
This-
Agreed to
takes
that.
it right,
How
take
people
it
can
right
get in.
out
Yes.
of the
Yeah.
Yep.
discussion.
and then my favorite section is E, because it's very vague, and it doesn't truly allow for one of the higher quality signs, which we have a lot of, with the high-density urethane, which gives the appearance of carved wood. It's a plastic sign, but it looks like wood, and those are actually the most, those are the $3,000 signs downtown.
Yep.
And they don't deteriorate.
And they look
Very-
great in 10 years.
Yeah.
So
Good
it's
point.
nice to specifically allow them rather than kind of wink and nod and say, it looks like wood, I'm good. And I mean, we can, I think that's probably, oh, that's the word I hated, is should. In code, should is a really bad word because it's not enforceable. Shall is what.
should or may, you don't want to use.
Yeah, so so it changes to shall be,
It's fine by me.
I'm okay with
It
the
up.
wording here, I think.
Another favorite section of mine is H, under movable signs and vehicles being used in lieu of signs, because we can't really regulate a vehicle that's registered for the highway from parking somewhere that looks like a billboard. But and I'm not so sure how legal it might be, but to require them to move them on occasion, rather
Yeah.
than the guy who parks a box truck right in front of his store and leaves it there for 6 months.
Yeah.
That's, yeah, I mean, that's, again, that's a,
But there's
if somebody wants to sue us, let us sue us. I'm okay
No,
with
I think what Mike is saying is, does the town want to sue that business owner?
And say you can't leave it there.
that. Or, no, the business owner's saying, I'm
That's
not gonna
considered
move it,
movable
I'm not gonna
sign.
move it if you want me to,
Yeah,
I'm
the
not gonna
business
move
owner is going to say, you sue me.
oh, yes, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Because he has a registered
yes,
vehicle.
yes.
There's,
At his place of business, where he's entitled to
I
park his
I don't
business
think there's any
vehicles.
state statute regulating signs on vehicles.
No, you can certainly do that. The question is, how long do they park somewhere? And we had one business owner, actually, it turns out he's parked on state property, so that was helpful. But he just left his van right on a piece of grass, and we were able to talk to him, get him to move it. He then actually relocated it to a parking lot on North Main Street, where it was really staged for maximum visibility. And it truly was being used in lieu of a sign, of a mounted sign, and
And the
but it
business
was a
closed.
registered vehicle, so if you're there for a day or two, fine. If you're working there and you're installing, air conditioners, fine, but to
Yeah.
leave it there for 4 months, that's another question.
Okay.
So, just to say, shall be moved from the location once a week, it's in there. Whether it's truly enforceable in the court, I don't know.
Where is that?
That's not in here.
H.
H, it doesn't say once a week.
It doesn't say, do you want
Okay,
that in
it had
there?
an original, once upon a time.
No,
guess.
I think we're better off saying,
I think we took that out.
shall be used as a means of circumventing the purpose and intent of this ordinance. I think that gives us the latitude that,
I do too.
whatever
Yeah.
the decision
Yeah,
is.
Keep it short and
we
sweet.
don't need
if-
to be specific.
If Mike decides it's a month, if he decides it's 3 weeks, if he decides it's 6 months, it gives us a latitude to use your judgment on how you want to handle it.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
Yep.
Okay.
Yes.
I guess next one would be K, correct?
Okay, the new one, flags.
And so this one, it's more for you guys to decide what number of flags do you allow a property to have? Again, we can't really, and I said, other than the American flag, I don't know if that's content or not. It probably is. But are we going to allow somebody to have 3 flags, 4 flags, 1 flag? You know, we've got 2 flags in front of this building. American Legion has 3 flags.
Yeah, but, and to be the devil's advocate, I think you could make a convincing argument that a flag is a sign. I could put a flag with my business name on it, and that's in lieu of a sign. So do we want to allow that at all?
Well, he's saying it may not contain a commercial message,
It says now, though, may not.
may not contain a commercial message.
Right, and message is important
Using a flag
because,
as a commercial.
I think it was a lobster.
That's K, that's not J,
It was
though.
down in
No,
Rye.
we're talking about K.
We're talking about
Okay.
K. May not contain a commercial message,
Yeah.
and it was a lobster in front of the beach plum, was it, down
Yes,
in North?
yeah, it was art, not a commercial message by the
Which
courts.
ruled in favor of the town.
What's that?
They ruled in favor of the town's ordinance.
Against the town.
Against the town.
It was, the beach
Art.
claw, the claw of the lobster is art, not a commercial message. So
Yeah,
if
and-
somebody has a shell,
And saying you can't put a commercial message, my point is that I think you're restricting speech. I could put a
Right,
sign, I could
exactly.
put a flag on my building that says, "Hello, everyone," and that's fine, but I can't put one that says my name on it. If you can put a flag up, then I don't think you can control the message on it.
Yeah.
Is
yeah,
my point.
I agree.
It's based on this Supreme Court ruling.
right. So then you decide how many, you may want to decide how
Let me
many
ask you
flags.
this, do we have a problem with flags in town?
I don't think so.
Then why even
Well,
go here?
we
Why
do.
don't
I
we
don't
just?
know if we should
We
limit
don't-
it because.
We have
Why
problems
even
with
go
these
here?
feather
You have the
flags.
American
Oh,
flag,
that's
state
another one,
flag,
which,
a
didn't I
town
make that in
flag.
here?
Right.
That's
Yeah,
in
that's
here.
in there. School flag.
Yes,
you
yes,
know.
we do have a
We have
problem with the
problems
feather
with feather
flags.
flags.
What's
What
a
those
feather
that kind of
flag?
blow in the
Flag.
air?
Stick them in the ground and
They blow in the
Yeah, yeah,
breeze.
one said flooring, which was a custom one.
Dunkin' Donuts has them.
Yeah, the lottery has them. We've
The-
had a whole bunch of lottery
The
ones.
gym
They
uses
were-
them every once in a while.
Yeah, it looks like a used car lot, and actually had a foreman.
Is that
put
actually a flag, or is that considered a sign?
The pennant flags?
They,
The
So you,
Called
big
a
ones,
feather
the
flag.
feather flag that's 20
so
feet
let's see,
long.
here's the
Yeah.
pole.
Tall and
It's
skinny,
gonna be-
yeah.
Is that a sign or a flag?
I guess it's a flag if
So
it's
it's
fabric,
attached here
right?
and
It's-
here.
I don't know.
But
I
if
guess
it
I don't
has-
know what defines it
but
to.
if it
I guess
has
I'd
a
make the argument that
cloth,
it's a sign.
you know, and
It's
then
just
it
a
might
sign made
say
out of different
open.
material.
Yeah,
So, my,
Scale.
my
then
preference
this-
is to, if
this
we don't have a problem with flags,
width
let's,
is, you know, when the
Well, we
wind
do
catches
with
it.
let's
the
not even
feather
have
Yeah,
anything.
okay, thank you.
we've got feather flags have shown up at real estate property for sale.
Yeah,
They'll say
the big
waterfront.
thing now.
It wasn't
Yeah.
one of anybody's properties at this table.
Thank you.
But it-
I think, isn't more important for flags rather than like limiting the quantity? Wouldn't it be really size is more important? Like if someone drapes a giant flag
Yeah.
somewhere versus, let's say you had a Nepalese restaurant open and they had a chain of prayer flags, typical thing, it's just like a bunch of little flags.
Yeah.
Are you gonna outlaw that when that's like sort of the style of the culture of
Right.
what the restaurant might be? Whereas, I think you probably wanna say something about the flags, but I don't know about, I think I would focus on limiting the size and what's on the flag if it's commercial, right? Like, you
Yeah, I don't
can't
think you
really
can.
limit
Speech.
country
Yeah,
flags or
can't
that
do
kind
that
of thing.
what's on the flag so much, unless there's commercial speech, whatever, what was it?
Right.
I would rather
governmental-
we define those items as a sign and not had a section on flags.
Yeah,
A sign can be there's no I don't think there's any, definition that says a sign is made out of certain material.
It is under E.
Under E,
Materials,
Wood, wrought iron, metal, stone, brick, and other natural materials.
so it can't
Oh,
be,
natural,
well, we could,
can't be material like
isn't cotton a natural material?
that's a
Yeah.
natural material or fabric.
You could add fabric.
right.
I know I've gotten a lot of complaints in the feather flags, and I don't feel like I was on solid ground telling them to remove them,
Okay.
but at the same
So I
time,
think maybe we just, include in this section just the last sentence. If the issue is
Oh, yeah.
feather flags and pennants are not permitted in any zone, then that's the issue, then
Yeah.
that's the
Let's
only
leave it at
thing
that.
we should-
So take out the
and
first-
take out the
Yeah.
number of flags and the
Yeah,
American
because
flag
it-
part.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
because you're saying that other than the American flag, it can just be the flag and limited to 3 per property.
And I think Peter's right. Why do we
Yeah.
care how many they
He's
have
right.
as a size?
Take
But
that out.
let's just
Because
say,
if that's the issue, then
Yeah.
that's what we should be,
that's what I was trying to get at. What's the
regulating.
issue? And that the issue is those flags and pennants, and let's say we're not gonna, you can't put them in. I agree with you, Val.
Right. Yeah, I mean, suppose someone opened a flag store and they wanted to have 10 different countries flying outside, right?
Yep. There was one in Portsmouth on Route 1.
Yeah, that was on Route 1, yeah,
Yep.
next to McDonald's, or the,
Yeah, that-
Okay, I'm good with that. Okay, next on to,
Okay, so let me just, on K, so you're going to specifically state something about
the last sentence.
that type of flag?
The last
just saying
sentence, feather
feather,
flags.
feather flags and
Everything else
pennants are
gets
not
deleted.
permitted in any zone, period.
Everything else is gone.
Yep, I'm good with that. Okay, so next is the table,
And the size,
the sizes of signs.
Yeah.
I'm good with all that, that's just,
Yeah, that, I think that's probably the intent. I don't really think that the intent was to have some of the signs the size that they were,
right,
signs.
right,
a realization how big they would really be.
right. I'm fine with all that. Everybody okay with all sign, changes in
Valerie,
sizes?
you had some concerns about having varying sizes in residential districts according
Right.
to density. Did you want to
So
bring
that
that
was my
point up?
issue, that, it makes sense to have the smaller signs in dense areas, because
Yeah.
otherwise you would really be seeing signs everywhere, because they're just, so closely populated together, as opposed to why wouldn't you allow the larger signs out in the R1 or R2, where those, or maybe not R2, because I think that's only half acre. But R1, I mean, you have a minimum 2 acres, you could have something that's 20 acres, and you're limiting it to a 2x4 sign, or 2.5 by 3 point something.
Well,
Right.
if it's an existing business, then they'd be grandfathered, whatever sign they have, right,
Correct.
in
Yeah.
R1.
That's right.
And if they're not an existing business, they really wouldn't be allowed in a residential, because
Doesn't have to be.
Well,
No,
they can
would,
have,
because you have a home-based
customary
business.
home-based businesses can have signs, and I think there's a restriction on the
or
size.
it's big enough. I mean, if you're in a residential area, your neighbors wouldn't really expect it, even 2 acres. I wouldn't expect somebody to put a large sign in my neighborhood, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I don't care for signs in residential areas, but like Diane pointed out, we had the business, and we had a sign in front of our business, and it's technically a residential area.
I forget.
But it was a legally allowed business, and that's the point, I think, getting to. I wouldn't want to see a sign in a residential area unless the property was a business, a legal business.
Well, that goes without saying, because otherwise, you know what I'm saying? That's what this is
But I don't think this
regulating.
prohibits putting a sign up.
It brought in line with
So
what
what would be-
R3 and
Goes like a
R4
12.
was. Oh, wait a second, no, it does not, sorry.
The committee changed it last week,
Okay.
Mike. That's why it was different from what you had originally proposed.
So,
We
Val,
changed
you
it
would
out to
propose
eight-
like leaving
8 square
R1 at
feet.
12 square feet.
I would. How big do you think your sign was, Rosie? When you had the business off?
That was
open?
it was, I think it was,
I mean, I think it was probably 24, 4 by 8. I mean, that's a sheet of plywood going this way.
oh no, that wasn't 4 by
It's-
8.
4 by 8's a big sign.
That's what I'm
That's
saying, but
bigger than the
how
table.
big do you think it was?
She's in enough.
I
depth.
can't
It
remember.
was more than 2
It
by
it was, what
4.
was allowed, I think it was 24 square feet.
Well, that's what I'm
It's
saying.
not-
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the Aroma Joe's
4 by
sign,
6,
or the sign at,
3 by 8. That's
I think Ames Insurance. Is that?
Mine was 4 by 3.
Eames.
So that's 12 square feet. I'm thinking that might be, that makes sense.
Mine was 4 by
Especially
3.
because on some of those areas, you're traveling at a higher speed.
Yeah.
True.
So that's what I would recommend, that R1 that goes to the 12, which it was.
Leave it at 12. I'm okay with that.
I'm okay with that.
Which
R1
number is this
gonna
again?
Stay at 12.
On page
R1
12 in the table,
On page
R1
12,
stays at
we're
12
going to stay
feet.
at 12.
And everything else is 8 for residential districts.
And am I right that the ordinance doesn't allow a sign in a residential area, even at the 8 square feet, unless there's a business there? You have to have a business, I mean,
I don't know if
I
that
don't-
regulation's
Can't
there.
it- If you have,
I could put a sign up with my
if you
name
have a
on it.
home
Big
occupation
wooden sign out in front of my
or a
property.
home-based
property there.
business, you're entitled to a sign. And it's the sign requirements, and it refers back to the sign regulation.
if you have the business.
Yes,
Right.
I don't think I could
But you
stop
can't have an
somebody from putting up a
off-premise sign
sign,
there.
though,
with their
that,
name on it.
yeah.
I agree with you.
Or
Say that
I love
again?
my neighbor.
I couldn't
or-
stop somebody from putting up a sign if it just said, I hate salami,
Right.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think I have the ability, because that's
Free speech.
content-based.
No, that's
It's,
contact-based.
you
Yeah.
know, and it,
Okay.
It's not regulated by
right.
business. Okay, all right, so. that's
But
a
it's
good-
clear that a business needs to follow these regulations.
Yeah.
Yes.
Everybody
So that's just for the
does.
R1 zone, we're changing that back to
Right.
12. Okay. So,
Then we go to the.
Page
top of
13
page
at the
13.
top.
Right, item 3, the message area shall not exceed 8 square feet in the,
Projecting signs.
Yeah,
yes.
this is just a projecting, that, actually, a sign
It's a-
vendor said 24 square feet. You're
It's a
talking
big
about
sign.
big sign, do you know what you're really saying there? And I don't think that was actually the intent, because that is a very big sign. and-
Yeah.
Yep, I'm fine with the 8 square feet, I think that's, then, under the wall signs, number 4, the message area of a wall sign
And-
shall not exceed 10%.
well,
That's a
right now,
question mark.
it's 10%.
That's what we're
And we
looking-
felt
how
that
do
that
we-
was excessive, so I guess we wanted to throw it out there for discussion, what percentage makes sense. And,
Wow.
when we
Yeah.
did the Newbury Farms Market, that came up as an issue, because the size of the sign is fairly large. As you drive into town, it's right there.
Yeah, and we had some
Yeah,
complaints
was
even on
larger.
Kennybunk Savings, and theirs was about half of that. And people thought that was too big, and theirs is like 5% of the wall area. So,
Yeah, I'm thinking of the exception, though, if you do a subdivision and you do a stone wall.
That's different, that comes under different.
That comes
part
under
of the-
yeah,
different.
that's an exempted sign
comes
for a
under the
subdivision
subdivision
sign,
regulations.
yeah.
Okay, all right, okay, I'm fine then.
So you want to change
So-
it to 5%?
Well,
Is it exempt?
it-
A subdivision sign?
Yeah, but if the zoning,
It is exempt.
Yes. Yeah,
well, I'm
there's-
talking about, I'm talking about a lot of people are doing them now, you build a nice stone
Because it-
wall and you put the development
I
name
love
in the
those.
stone
Yeah, those
wall.
look nice.
Yeah,
To me, that's a sign.
Yeah.
And to me, that's a wall sign.
Yeah, and
It's a
it's-
The
sign
planning
on the
board
wall.
regulates the design of it.
that's a subdivision
Sure.
sign.
See if I can find it.
So people other than me complained about Kennybunk?
No. It was just you. I didn't throw you under the bus until you did it to yourself.
Well, they all knew that.
Yeah, 16 under exempted signs, one directional sign may be replaced to the right-of-way at the entrance to a subdivision. Message area shall not exceed 12 square feet and shall not be, exceed 6 feet in height.
But that's not a directional sign, though. A name
It's a-
sign's not a directional sign.
It's actually what I've been using for all the
A
subdivisions.
directional
it's a-
sign is
it's a
saying Smith Road that
Identification
way,
sign.
Newmarket that way.
It's an identification sign.
Yeah,
Right,
That's what it is.
then I guess that should be a better term.
right.
because it probably is, probably we could clean up the language. That's the portion I've been using for the subdivision
Maybe
signs.
you take out the, maybe, I hate to go backwards, but maybe you just take out directional and just say
Right,
one sign,
Yeah.
you know, because a subdivision name is not a directional sign.
What page is that on?
On 9,
Page-
under section 16, paragraph 16.
Okay.
Just take out the word
One
directional,
sign may
say
be
one
placed.
sign.
Well, but then that
But
negates
there's
what you're
also-
talking about, because if you have an entrance to a subdivision and you have a stone wall, you need the sign coming on each way.
Yeah.
You're gonna have the sign on both sides if they're integrated into the wall.
Yeah, that's true.
I thought there was something in the subdivision.
We don't have any that have done that yet, but so far, we've been limiting them to one, and they pick their most opportune spot to put their one sign at the end of the subdivision. It seems to have worked pretty well, I thought, but haven't gotten any complaints.
Interesting. I don't know what the answer to that is, Val. No, you're right. I mean, if you do stone walls, you do them on both sides.
Because this is basically, then you're saying that you want the developer to put up a two-sided sign on a post,
which
as
is-
opposed to putting them into a stone.
Yeah, which is ugly compared to
Right.
nice
Yeah.
signs, in it, which is,
But because a developer, I don't think they're gonna go and get a variance to do the
Right,
stone
they
wall
probably
and have
wouldn't
two
bother.
signs.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
I would say just add language in there about if stones are
I-
placed
I-
within a stone wall, two are permitted.
A sign identifying the entrance
Or the-
to a subdivision shall not exceed 12 square feet and shall not exceed, and height shall not exceed 6 feet. You worded it that way.
How are you wording that, Rosie, that it will provide for two signs?
It was not really allowed for, I didn't get to the two part, but just I forget how the hell I even said it.
Instead of saying
It
one
says
direction, you
one
just said a
sign.
sign.
A sign
A sign.
identifying,
That's what it is, it's an identification
a
sign.
sign identifying a subdivision may be placed in the right-of-way at the entrance to a subdivision.
Okay.
The message shall, yada, yada, yada.
How about just leave it the way it is? Let me say, one directional sign may be placed, a directional sign is a directional sign, and then, you know, after the 6 feet, say, in addition, signs identifying, a subdivision name placed in a stone wall.
You don't
They
need,
have two per,
I think
two
just-
per.
That gets
Just-
complicated.
Just
It
have
does,
one
but-
sign.
Well,
Yeah.
could you say that
You don't want more
a
than one.
double-sided
Yeah.
sign with the identical message, can you have language saying that if you have a double-sided sign, identical message front and back is allowed?
Well, that is allowed.
That is allowed.
it is allowed now.
I'm talking about
You're talking
a,
about the sign, and I
Understood.
think the way we have it worded, those are the types of entrance signs that we would get to a subdivision.
It was on a pole unless you allow it on, so you're saying it allow
Right.
specific language for a rock, for a stone wall sign
right.
with sign.
And what we're saying right now is we only allow one. If you have two stone walls at the entrance, you're gonna have one, somebody can see going north. You're not gonna be able to see it going south, because we're only allowing one. I think we should have an exception to allow for two.
But if it can be double-faced, you would see it going both north and south.
No, you wouldn't. No, because the
If
way-
it's on a stone wall, you wouldn't, but if
Just-
it was
it all
freestanding.
depends.
Yeah, it all depends on the application.
So
Right.
I think like Piscassic Village, I think they're in the stone wall on each end. So that was permitted and being allowed, but yet it's in violation
Why
of the
can't you
ordinance.
just say directional signage may be placed in the right-of-way?
Because it's not a directional sign, it's an
Right.
identification sign.
Right, it's,
A directional sign says Piscassic River Village is that way, with
So
a
how
big
about
arrow.
subdivision name identification signs may be
That's
placed
what we-
in the right.
that's what I'm trying to
Right,
get at.
that's what we're trying to say.
Oh,
we're
in the
trying to
right
say-
of way, okay, because usually we do have them in 5 feet from the property line.
Okay, well,
I've been,
of course, if it's.
Well, that's why, at
Oh,
the
I see.
right, at
Thank
the
you.
right-of-way, it would be a directional sign, because it's closer
Okay,
to the
that's
road,
right,
so
'cause
people
at-
can see it.
at the
But an
entrance it-
informational sign should be placed 5 feet in from the property line.
And it would take up more room than a directional sign,
Yeah.
which would be smaller.
and
Yeah.
we have to be a little bit careful too, because we can't
We
give
don't want
permission
12
to do
square
something in the
for
States right
directional
away.
sign.
Right.
That's theirs.
Well, we
Yeah.
can't allow anything in the States right away, that's not our
Right,
purview,
so we don't, I don't think we really want to allow them to put anything in the right of way, because that's,
I think we should just nix 16.
Just
it's better if
Delete
it's
it?
on their property, that's the way it's theirs.
Yeah,
delete it altogether?
I would just get rid of it.
All right, do we have some
So
consensus on
maybe,
that?
maybe something should be exempt as approved by the planning board for subdivisions. So subdivision
Right.
signs are exempt.
As
As
approved by,
approved
by
by
the-
subdivision.
Subdi- as was approved by the planning board.
Subdivision identification signs.
But do you want any regulations on how big that sign is?
I think it should be in the subdivision regulations,
Right.
not in the sign.
Yeah,
ordinance.
yeah, if it's somewhere, it's fine.
Yep,
but,
it's good.
I could just see somebody wanting a huge sign and,
Well, no, that's
Well,
why
but
it
that's
would be part of
okay.
subdivision approval.
mean,
and we
it
have
should all
aesthetic
be
review.
relative to where the subdivision is.
Yeah, and we have
I mean,
aesthetic
if-
control.
Florida, where I have my condo, there are all these huge palatial signs with waterfalls, and
Yeah, some of
it's
them are
like, you know,
gorgeous.
the grand entrance to the development, and they're huge.
Yeah.
yeah.
But they're aesthetically pleasing to look
Yeah.
at, because they're nicely landscaped and designed
Have to be
and laid
part of
out.
site plan review.
But
Okay.
Maybe
Kind of just
Diane
use
can
that
come up with some
rectangular
Okay.
language for
lettering.
that.
For the
So
subdivision
we'll nix-
regulations.
under
Are we
exempt.
gonna nix 16?
Out of this section,
Yes,
So just take it out entirely.
and then Diane will write some language for under the exempt
Yeah.
section, which is gonna be number 18.
Right.
All these signs that we're putting up, not that we, that the people put up.
So
we're gonna
17
make sure they're
becomes 16.
not gonna be interfering with the, a lot of the places
Line
in
of
town.
sight.
It
with the line
can't,
of
it
sight.
can't
Absolutely.
interfere with the
Right.
line
They
of
can't.
sight, so it
Right.
has to be subject to site plan
Because a lot of the
review
stuff
approval.
now isn't, it's a pain in the butt.
Yeah.
Part of the biggest problem is the utility companies, which is another problem, but with their poles, I mean, you can't
I know,
see.
the one at the top of Jerry Ave, for instance, they put it when
that's-
you're right
Yep.
there, they put the
terrible
pole right
placement.
where,
Yep.
right in front of you.
We can't change those, the ones that we keep on.
Oh, I know.
Yeah, I know.
Well, actually, some
I'm
towns have
leaving at 6. I have to leave
regulations
in a
on
half hour.
utility poles.
So can we get
Okay.
just
State does too.
to,
All right,
Get back to
we,
this
back to the
50%.
wall area sign.
I think we said 5%.
I don't know whether we throw an arbitrary number, do you wanna?
I think you
We
might.
have, we have to throw something in there, Mike, is what you wanna say? Because
10%.
Well, no, I
10%'s
wanted
way
you
too
to
much.
consider
Once you
it. I
discuss
think that what maybe, I don't want to make work for myself, I could come up with a few mock-ups and show you what different things, maybe 10% is the right number. I don't know. I was just kind of tossing it out there because there was
Do you
some,
know what the
No.
percentage was, for example, for Newbury Farms or something like that, that caused the issue?
I think
They-
they went
it
right
was-
to the limit. I think they really, once we add, because they
But
do,
it was-
they went for a
it's
couple
big.
variances
It's
too.
too big.
that sign
Big.
was not, what
That
they had
space.
was not allowed. They went for a variance. They got a biggest.
They got two variances, yeah.
They got a big, yeah, they did. They got two variant, they got big, big signs. They went way over and above.
And they also were 3 registered businesses, so each business is allowed to have a sign, which is pretty interesting way of doing business if you're 3 registered. He's the meat house, he was, I forgot what the 3
Yeah.
businesses, the coffee shop and the Newberry Farm. So there were 3 businesses there, which was pretty good.
I mean, rather than say a percentage is tough, because it's all relative to, obviously, the size, do we throw
I
square
would
footage?
do 5 to keep the town safe, and if Mike looks at a building, he could say, listen, you know, you want it bigger, go for a variance.
Yeah.
That's what I would say that to people.
Where it can run into troubles in the small buildings,
Yeah.
the sign will be very small. In the big building,
Right.
that's where you run into trouble.
But that's what I'm saying, now, we better off with the square footage, do we say maximum
Not to exceed.
32 square feet or 24 square feet or something, because
Right, right.
I'm gonna go to get a variance and say, because my building is so small, I can't put up a sign that I, you know,
Right, we look at something like a coffee shack, and it would be a very, very small
Right.
sign by the time
Right.
you're done.
right, right. I mean, do we put a square footage at it, and
Yeah,
I think it should
it's
be a
arbitrary no matter what we
percentage.
do, I guess, but.
I think it should be a percentage.
maybe now's not the right time, maybe it's not a big of a problem to even, I just threw it out there for consideration, not so
I
much
think
that I
Val's
think there's a
idea of,
problem.
say, 32 square feet or 24 square feet is more appropriate as opposed to a percentage of the entire wall.
Now, this wouldn't apply in the downtown.
Yes, it
That's
would.
where it would.
Yeah,
Yes,
Kennybunk
it would.
Savings is the example, in that, personally, I don't think it looks inappropriate at all, I think it looks about
Yeah.
right. But that's just my opinion, and that doesn't really matter.
No, my comment was more, is there a not to exceed?
It
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah.
Well, so what's the percentage of the Kennebunk sign?
I'd have to go look at it again, but it is probably more along the lines of 5%.
Is that including all the signage in the windows?
No, in the windows.
And the banners out front?
Doesn't count. Anything inside the glass
Doesn't count.
is no longer counting except for neon signs or neon-style signs. So, and they did get a little extension because they're on two streets. And when you're on 2 streets, you're allowed to have additional signage.
So we don't need an answer tonight, right?
Nope.
Can somebody, Mike, can you just think about it, maybe get some information for us and
Yeah. I'll do
say
a mock-up
5%,
and show you.
10%, 32
Are there any
square
other
feet,
standards somewhere that you can just,
Yeah, there's
I
lots
can
of
certainly
different
dig up other
standards.
I think
towns.
Val's idea is good, is to consider not to
I agree,
exceed.
square footage. All right.
Yeah.
Thank you,
okay.
all right, wait a
Thank you,
minute,
Mike.
that's the last
think that's the
potential
end of
edit
the
there,
sign.
okay. To keep things rolling along.
Eric, I don't know where it should be mentioned here, but I think it's worth noting, just so people have some more time, is when the council met, we talked about the proposed joint meeting between the town council
Yep.
and planning board. And the date that the town council is proposing is to do it on February 1st, which is a regular town council meeting. We'll have an abbreviated town council meeting, and then we'd be able to do a joint meeting with the planning board. And I think we should make sure we look at that date tonight.
I'm out of town that date. I'm in
February
Florida.
1st?
You here? Okay. No, I'm not.
She's out.
You out?
Yeah.
So
Ours
maybe
are
it's
around.
not a good date. Maybe we should start
At the
propose
moment, I'm
another
here.
date. Val and I were gonna be out, you know,
On the
some, there was
8th,
some
7th
talk.
and 8th,
Yeah,
yeah.
we
I mean-
were away then, so there were,
I was hoping that we could do it in maybe the first meeting in March, early March.
Oh, when you have the new council.
Yeah.
well,
Wait till
I
the
think that
first
might be
meeting was still
fine.
the old
I think
council,
that
the
might be
second
fine.
meeting
We were
was-
trying to
Oh,
do
that's
it.
right.
The second meeting in March.
Wait till
Second
the-
meeting in March, we'll have the new council.
And then
That would be a
but
better
that would be
time.
more like a organizational meeting, right?
Right.
That's the second meeting in March. I don't think there's any problem doing it with the old council at this time
Yeah.
either.
No, and,
I'd rather do it with the older council because they're experienced. I mean, we can have 3 new people up there that
Did he throw
never
out the
did
first
public.
meeting in March?
He did say the first
We
of
talked
February.
about we decided to go look at the first meeting in February as a
Right.
starting
and if that works for everybody
Right.
else, go ahead and meet. I don't
No,
want
no,
to.
I think we should
Well,
be there.
Steve
Yeah,
said
I
that
think
it
so,
didn't
too.
have to be the complete planning board. It could be just representatives.
Right, right.
If
But-
people had an interest and would like to participate in the discussion, he also invited Mike Hoffman to come to talk about the maintenance code and the,
Well, we
junkyard
can
ordinance.
talk about it to see when we go,
Was
we go back
really
to the
what we-
council we're meeting next week, and we can
Yeah.
say that,
Yeah.
you know, if it's all right with everybody, we'll go to March, unless, you know, that's gonna
Yeah.
cause a big problem. We could do it February, but we would not have
And what is it
Eric
they want to
present.
discuss?
It's just,
Well,
it's just the,
Eric sent a letter to the council relative to some of the future land uses, and we were saying, well, these items should be over at the town council, and then the idea was, should we form a committee, and there'd be a planning board rep to that. So, I mean, I think that's one of the big issues,
Yeah.
being
And
the.
junkyard
the
ordinance was one
junkyard
of
and
those.
the-
Yeah,
right.
because
And it's
and
also in the
property
charter that
maintenance.
we would
Yeah.
have a joint meeting,
Right.
so we would be
And then I
fulfilling the
th-
charter, and there are some specific
Yep.
things that
And
are
the
part of the
council wanted to
agenda.
talk about water issues and smart growth?
Yep.
Is that-
Right. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So we don't need a full planning board for that, so if a few people, so February 1st, I think, sounds good.
well, I'm gonna propose that we say
First week
March
in
1st.
March.
If we can do it, then I'd like to have the chair there if he can be
Yeah.
there. So,
Yeah,
and
okay.
I don't think it's that pressing.
Yeah.
Unless people feel otherwise, that's.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean,
March 1st.
And that would give us a little more time
Mm-hmm.
to really have, you know, when it comes to some of the zoning changes, if we want to
Right,
sort
we'd have a
of
lot
have those
Okay.
seen by the
I
council
would like to
before we
have
have
that
the
in
joint
hand
meeting.
to
It would give us a little
present
more time to get that done.
Yeah.
right, right.
So potentially, that's gonna be your March 1st, that's the first Wednesday?
March.
I
Yeah,
don't know, is that the first Wednesday in March?
Yeah, you meet on the first and second Wednesdays?
right,
Okay,
that
so
would be our
March
first
1st.
meeting. I mean, it
Yes.
doesn't, I think if we
Yeah,
weren't, we were kind of pushed for a thing there. It's also possible, what is February 28th? What's going on then?
That's a Tuesday.
No other meetings, because it could be that we just, if we're going to push it out that far, you could say, let's have it not on a town council meeting night.
And just
so
do it as a
28th of
workshop.
February would work as well for you guys as,
Yeah, that would work for me also. So
yeah,
we just bring that back to the council, and if they want to meet the 28th or the 1st,
yeah, yeah.
So we're doing February 1st?
Well,
No.
we'll talk to the
February
council.
28th or March 1st.
All right, well, let us know.
Okay?
Yeah.
All righty.
And I think we've got enough people. If either of those dates are good, we could have Steve send out an email to them.
And how much time are they going to allot this discussion for?
Well, it'd be an evening meeting. I usually you'd start it at 7.
Just us? Just the
If it's
planning
a board? February 28th, it would be kind of like a combined
Yeah,
workshop.
because it's a
Yeah.
Tuesday.
If it's March 1st, then we're on the agenda for the council
Or
meeting.
they may do, what we talked about doing, if we'd done it February 1st, was to have a very abbreviated town council meeting.
Perfect.
And
Yeah.
then
Dedicate
that
most of the
o-
meeting.
is over,
Yeah.
and then, you know,
Yeah,
so
and
either
then
one of
wrap
those
it
would
up,
be
yeah.
possible.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. Okay. All right, let's pick up the pace. I think the accessory apartment thing is a little bit more straightforward than the sign changes, I hope.
Yes.
So the accessory apartment changes
Can
are,
we let's do the first section on the first page, the modifications for economic development. These came right out of our master plan.
Yep.
And we've talked about them several times, we've had several public hearings, and the committee felt that we were ready to go forward with these changes and schedule them for a public hearing.
okay.
And if we work quickly and we don't have a lot of changes to the text, then I can get it on the agenda for the 24th if the board is so inclined. But we have to have all the changes and everything done for the newspaper no later than noon tomorrow morning. So, we can't have a major rewrite.
So page 1, any issues?
I'm good with page 1.
I'm good with page 1.
I'm good with page 1.
Page 2.
Well, wait, did you get a
Yep.
consensus?
Yeah, I think page 1's fine.
Rosie, you should be fine, we did it.
Yeah.
I changed
All
my
right.
mind, so.
Okay, so,
Yeah.
you want to schedule this for public hearing?
Yes.
For the 24th, okay, good, thank you. Accessory apartments.
Yes.
Didn't you want to go to that non-conforming use?
Want to go non-conforming use?
That's on
Top
That's
page
a
page
real
2.
simple, I mean, I gave you some background information just for your own
Yep.
Yeah.
reference, but basically, we need to have a time frame at which non-conforming uses lose their grandfathered status. And if it's been abandoned or discontinued for a certain period of time, then that happens. And what the committee is recommending is that we include language in the ordinance that defines that as 1 year
Yep, because there was no
after
time.
discontinuation.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
And that's very standard in most zoning ordinances in the state, so the zoning board would be most appreciative if we would include that
Is
language
everybody okay
in the
with that?
zoning
1 year?
ordinance.
That's
Yep.
pretty typical.
224, public hearing.
Yep.
Good by me.
Okay, and now we broach the subject of
Accessory
accessory
apartments.
apartments. And so what I did, I reviewed our current ordinance in light of the changes to the state law, which went into, or will be going into effect June 1st, 2017, and I did provide you with a copy of the state law. And so for modifications, well, let me just give you an overview that right now, our ordinance does allow accessory dwelling units granted by special exception by the zoning board of adjustment. We don't have any additional requirements for lot size, frontage, or land use above and beyond what's required for single-family dwellings. We currently allow 1 accessory dwelling unit per detached single-family residence, and as it stands now, it has to be within the existing footprint of the single-family home. You can't actually build an addition. However, the state law has said that you need to consider an option where there is an addition to an existing detached dwelling. So for recommended changes, the first change is that we clarify that the accessory apartments are allowed in all residential districts that permit single-family residential use, and that includes the M2, the M2A, the M3, M4, R1, R2, R3, and R4 zones. And that's really a clarification for our current ordinance. There is a section in here that talks about, if I can put my finger on it, hang on. Is that existing regulation? Oh, okay, so I'm gonna, it talks about the need to balance the number of bedrooms and accessory apartments to prevent excessive growth in the number of school-age children. I think that language reeks of housing discrimination, and I think it's important that we remove that language from our
So
town's ordinance, so I would suggest that we remove that language in its entirety.
What is that?
It's
Was
the
that?
second sentence, not
Second
line, the
sentence.
sentence.
In the purpose section, and it
Paragraph
says,
A.
to balance this, the number of bedrooms and accessory apartments is severely limited to prevent excessive growth in the number of school-aged children.
Diane, on your memo, you just need to change line to sentence.
Where are you?
What was that?
Your recommended.
On her recommendations, it's the sentence, second sentence.
Okay, thank
Item
you.
number 2, Rosie, where it says
Second
amend paragraph A,
sentence, not
second
line.
sentence.
That
Yep.
gets deleted.
Okay. Number 3, we're looking at adding just the clause "or attached to" in paragraph B.
So that allows somebody to do an addition, which you
Right.
can't do now, to do an
Right,
accessory
and that's
apartment.
consistent with the intent of the state law. Okay. And then we're talking in item 4, we cannot just limit it to studio and one-bedroom apartments, so we need to insert the language "or two-bedroom apartments." So that's the 4th change that's being recommended. Number 5,
Why can't we put the one-bedroom?
We can't restrict
you
that by
can't
state law anymore.
restrict it to just a one-bedroom apartment, and that's specifically stated in the state law.
We talked about that subcommittee meeting.
But you can distinguish a two-bedroom. So
You
I
have
thought,
to allow a two-bedroom.
You can't restrict it to one bedroom.
You can't just say only one bedroom. You have to allow a two-bedroom apartment. And I forget what section that is
In the statute,
in the statute. It is paragraph,
so if you put two-bedroom, because it says shall be either, then they would have to put a two-bedroom in?
No,
no,
Okay.
it
you
could
can
be.
put up to a
You
two-bedroom.
can't say
Shall
just a
either be in a-
one-bedroom or a
Right.
studio. You have to give them
Okay.
the option of a two-bedroom.
it's under,
Paragraph 9?
municipality may not limit an accessory dwelling unit to only one bedroom.
Thank you, Val.
We have to put any language in there at all as to how many bedrooms that we would or would not allow? I mean, if we're going to 700.
Well, yeah, because, I mean, I don't think we want to have 3-bedroom ones.
Well, how could you fit 3 bedrooms in a 750 square
10
feet?
by 10 is
can-
100 square feet.
People can be creative if you allow them, if you make
Okay.
them want to think, if you don't.
So the way it would read is that there would be an option for a studio, a one-bedroom, or a two-bedroom.
And I think that's appropriate.
Okay. The 5th change is pertaining to exterior changes. We have language currently that talks about no exterior changes shall be made which significantly alters the appearance of the structure from the street. So what I've done is taken just the language right out of the state law, and this was discussed at the committee level. And it talks about maintaining the aesthetic continuity of the accessory dwelling with the principal dwelling as a single-family dwelling. And that came right out of the state law. And I think that's kind of vague myself, but.
But I think that's what, we're allowed to do something, but we're not allowed to prevent them from making any changes to the
Correct.
exterior.
Right.
So to me, this is the best we can do.
Yeah, right.
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 It'd just be consistent with the statute.
Right. Okay, we're also suggesting adding a new paragraph regarding interior doors, and this again is right out of the state law. An interior door shall be provided between the principal dwelling unit and the accessory dwelling. However, it shall not be required to remain unlocked.
Yeah, I didn't require them. It says, are they required to have an interior door?
They're required to have a door, but.
Must have an interior
Yeah.
door,
They are, but it can't
must
be
not
locked.
require it to remain unlocked.
Do we need to say that it shall not be required to remain unlocked? Is that-
That's what the.
That's the
That's
statute.
out of the statute.
So,
So it's just better to do it, I guess. Okay.
Yep.
Just so we can show we're in compliance if anyone should ask.
Thought about it, okay.
And the
Okay.
door itself, I mean, I assume all other regulations like fire code and other things have to
Well,
be
it's an
followed for
interior
that,
door,
right?
so-
Right, nothing in here supplants the
Right.
fire code and the
nothing
building code.
supplants the building code.
It
right.
becomes one unit by
Right.
law, so there's no separation requirements.
Okay.
So it's just a standard interior door.
Yeah, it's just like having a bedroom.
A
over
hollow
there.
core door or so,
Just
whatever they want.
accessory to the
Right.
primary use.
Louver door.
Yep.
anything.
Okay.
Okay. And the seventh change has to do with just defining the difference between a principal dwelling and the accessory dwelling, which we do not have that definition in our regulatory scheme of things. So this will help to clarify that, which is a accessory dwelling unit and how that relates to the principal dwelling.
I think we need to add on the last sentence there, Diane, either a studio, one or two-bedroom apartment.
Under principal?
Under accessory dwelling unit, just for
Yes, yes.
consistency.
Either a studio, one, or two-bedroom. Good point.
Good catch.
All right. And that's what I have.
Okay, I have one
Changes.
question, Diane.
Yes.
On my copy here, on the paragraph B, the highlighted, we're just completely eliminating the square footage, right?
And there was a lot of discussion that went on at our committee level as to what exactly the state law meant, because it's very vague. It says you can have a minimum, you can have a maximum, and then it goes on to say, but it can't be less than 700 square feet.
750.
750, right. And so Dale, I think initially was the one who picked up on that and said, well, that doesn't make any sense. Does it have to do with a minimum or a maximum? We went around and around. We did contact Attorney Radigan and got a legal opinion from him, and he batted around with Eric Meyer of his office, who has done a lot of work on this accessory dwelling use section. And basically, we were told that it's no less than 750 square feet.
Correct.
I also talked with the State Planning Office and spoke with Susan Slack, who is a former attorney working there. She confirmed that. And I spoke with Ben Frost, who is with the New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, who's the Director of Legal and Policy Analysis, if you will, for the agency. And he was part of the drafting of this original legislation. And he agreed, yes, this is very awkward language. You're not the first one who was called. He said it clearly means a maximum, the maximum can't be less than 750 square feet.
Right. But
And
you
he
could have a
also-
minimum of 300.
You can have a minimum of
That's their
300.
choice.
And then he went on
Okay.
to say, as a matter of fact, I'm the chairman of the Warner Planning Board, and our ordinance says it can't be less than 300 square feet and greater than 1,000 square feet. He said, you're right on target. What you have is
That
consistent with
stays
the
the
state
same.
law. So we came to the conclusion, after talking to all those folks, that we don't need to really make any change on that.
Well,
Right.
what I have here is 300, 800. So
Yes.
that's not what you're proposing
No,
now?
and that will be
Whoa.
changed on the final
Wait a minute.
draft.
No.
We're not changing it, we're keeping it.
Diane is proposing that nothing changes on that.
Right.
No, but I think that's where you could say that, I wasn't, when we talked at a subcommittee, we did not come to a conclusion on whether, we should leave it at 1,000 or whether we should go to closer to what the state allows or requires. It can't be more than, the maximum is, can't be less than
750, right.
So it could be 800, and so the question is, do you want to allow 1,000-foot
No.
accessories, or would you like that number to be
No.
a smaller one?
Right.
And
Or, my position was a percentage of the primary dwelling.
No.
But that was not, I was overruled by the committee on that.
Yeah.
But, in thinking
Well-
about percentages, that's where I was coming from.
If we have to allow by law a
700.
two-bedroom accessory apartment, why do we care how big it is?
Well, I think, why do we zone anything?
I know.
We have density
No, right.
requirements, we're trying to keep,
Exactly.
you have for a certain size lot, you allow us, a certain square footage. I guess we allow a house, but we don't allow multifamily, and
And that's what it's gonna turn into being. It's gonna be multifamilies.
so I
We-
think it's just a reasonable choice to say.
I'm just asking the question, why, if density and population is based on bedrooms, not the size of the other living space. So
Right. But if you-
philosophically, if you allow a two-bedroom unit Why do you care whether it's 800 square feet or 1,000 square feet? It doesn't make more people live there, it doesn't allow more people to live there.
Because then they're gonna go for a
does.
come in for a variance and say, we have enough room with 1,000 square feet to put a third bedroom, we'd like a variance for it. I mean, they're given variances for 2,000 square foot accessory apartments. We are turning single-family homes with the 2,000 square foot accessory apartment into duplexes. We already have a 54%, instead of the average 15% of multi-units in this town, we have over 50-something%. And I think increasing any of the accessory units to what the ZBA is doing, which to me is absolutely ludicrous, that we should keep it at 800 square feet because the ZBA is doing enough damn damage and we've got enough multifamilies in this town, period.
We need to be careful
Okay.
about talking about the other boards.
I don't have.
No, but
I'm
I
asking the
brought, well,
question.
wait a minute, I brought up that example, and what Roseanne is failing to add to the facts of that case is it's over 7,000 square feet under roof, and the taxes are over 25,000 a year.
Well, they shouldn't have bought the house. I'm sorry. Accessory apartments were meant for grandma on a fixed income who's now widowed and she
And the
doesn't have.
laws require,
necessarily, not in this day
the
and age.
law requires owner occupancy in one of these units. I mean, so to say that now you're converting it to a multifamily is just not true, because that's not what the law would
When you have
allow.
Right.
when you have a 2,000 square foot accessory apartment, to me, that's a.
Limited to two
that's a
bedrooms.
multifamily.
Right.
Yeah.
Janice,
Well, I just threw that out there, and so I'm just saying,
Janice, you know what to say?
Well, I agree with Eric, because number one, 750 feet is not a very big apartment. They're tiny, and if I want, like, say in my example, all of a sudden, I don't want to live in my house anymore, but I may want to give my house maybe to my daughter, so it's still owner occupied somehow.
Yeah.
But I want to go into the smaller unit, and I'm going to be handicapped, so I want to install that so I can have a nice little glass porch. You're not increasing a bedroom, in an area, but you want to have a porch, you want to have bigger than, because 750 square feet is a bigger kitchen than what is there now, and with a washer and dryer, so you don't have to go to the laundromat. I don't think accessory apartments are as bad, as evil as you make them sound out to be. And that's what you're making it, you're making it sound like anybody who has a home who wants to put an accessory dwelling on are evil people, and they're not evil people.
No, they should be allowed to,
They want to
but
keep their
not-
families in
But
tow.
not but no, I think that's great, but not at that size. When you have a 2,000 square foot accessory, who's to say that they're gonna keep it
But I'm not
as,
going
as
as
just
high
two
as
bedrooms?
2,000 square
I
No,
know.
but what's the size of your house? Probably 3,000 square feet, if that, okay? So if you're saying like 1,000 square foot apartment, that's 33% of the house. 2,000 square feet of something that's over 7,000 square feet under roof is not 33%. It's smaller than what you would be doing in the scope of that area, in the size of your house.
I mean,
That's
I'm
my
not saying
point.
allow, I'm not saying, I mean, philosophically, I'd say, why do we restrict the size? But an 800 square foot apartment is a small apartment. And no matter how you figure, 800 square feet is a small apartment. So, you know, as a compromise, if we wanted to do 1,000 square feet, I'm just throwing it out there because 800 square feet is a small accessory, it's a small.
Especially if
1,000
now
feet
we're
is
adding the
unchanged, and I-
additional bedroom.
And that does seem to be, I mean, I counted the votes just now. It seems like 1,000 feet is the consensus,
Right.
and I'm okay with it.
Right, and if
that's
we
what I would
recognize that we're
support.
now
Yeah.
providing an opportunity for two bedrooms, then giving them an extra 200 square feet
Right.
will help make that a more livable unit
And
for
you know what?
people.
Under-
Right.
No matter what we do as a planning board, whether we're, you know, approving site plans, subdivisions, whatever, somebody has a right to go get a variance. If the ZBA gives it to them, that's their business. That has nothing to do with me. I don't make my decisions based on what the ZBA might do.
It's just
You know?
my.
I understand your frustration,
My
Roseanne, but-
concern is, you know, to the degree that we have such a extremely high multi-unit dwellings in Newmarket, and now we're going from one-bedroom accessories to two bedrooms. ZBA's approving these large things. It's, to me, it's a slippery slope, and I am not for it.
I will say, though,
I need some
owner-occupied is,
direction on
we don't
that.
have problems with
Well, let's do a
owner-occupied
consensus
buildings.
so that if we do, we know.
Well,
that
everyone
people
seems to
sign
be
up
in
for
approval
housing.
but
Well, it's
me.
a different situation too. I
It's-
think owner-occupied versus like the state.
That makes a world of difference. The other thing I will say is, we oftentimes have 2 or 3 children in one bedroom. That's pretty common, and there's nothing we can or want to do about that, but that does happen. And I've seen kids living in the living room, or mom living in the living room while the kid gets the bedroom.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of different things, but I think what you have is pretty good because, like I say, I don't get complaints on owner-occupied rental units.
Where I live, there's been an accessory apartment on my road from the day they built the house, 35 years ago. Never been a problem. It's been, there's
Right.
been a room over the garage forever. And it helps them pay their mortgage, I'm all for it. But 1,000 square feet, are we taking
Yeah, let's get that
consensus?
Okay,
consensus for
1,000
Diane.
square feet, so I can
big
put
money
that in
is.
the language.
I would support that.
I support 1,000 square feet.
Okay, I do too.
Amy,
Taxes
1,000 square
every
feet,
year.
you support?
Yes.
1,000, okay. 1,000.
So I think the
Yep.
majority is
You
yes.
didn't ask me, no.
Yo,
I think we know. Okay.
I'll put you down for a yes,
All right.
Rosie.
So you're all set
At your
with
own
me
risk.
scheduling this for public hearing for the 24th? And we are
Yes.
not going to do the signage for public hearing on the 24th. We're still doing
Right.
work on that, right?
Correct,
Okay.
Okay,
correct. And
because
the,
that's not complete.
the.
Oh, there's one more, subdivision. There was a state law that changed the application filing period from 15 days prior to the planning board meeting to 21 days. So we just need to change that from 15 to 21, real simple. It's in subdivision and site review regulations. It won't go to the council because it's not part of the zoning ordinance. But we do need to make the change. Let's do them all at the same
Yep,
time.
and we're already doing that, right?
We're already doing that.
Most towns are doing that already anyways.
Yep.
Yep, and it's good to do it.
And there were
The-
both sections of that. There was the.
Yes, there was one in the subdivision and one in the site review.
Did we get a letter from the attorney about the work session? Is that, are you addressing that to this meeting? I have this
About the
piece
what?
of.
We finally got a letter from the attorney on site review requirements for architectural design. I was hoping we could review these tonight, but I wanted to at least get the letter to you.
Sure.
If you recall, we had a discussion at the last meeting, I think it was, where we talked about the recent lawsuit that the town won. However, Mr. Radigan recommended that we make some changes to our architectural design standards so that we'll be in a bit better position upon appeals. And he has drafted something for our consideration. And I would like to maybe discuss this at the meeting on the 24th, if we have time, and go into more detail about that. I don't think,
I'm fine with that. I think that's appropriate.
I haven't even read the letter
Yeah,
yet,
I-
so,
I-
but I did want to get it out to everyone, because I promised it
Yep.
to you.
Okay.
I'm
Very good, I like that.
pretty good with that? Yep. Okay, anything else? Thank you all, we get out 7 minutes early.
Hey, very good.
We would never get
No.
the signage thing.
Signage
Well,
thing,
the
yeah.
signage
More questions.
stuff
Mike, thank you very
is-
much for your
Yeah.
time.
It does.
Absolutely.
Thanks, Michael. We appreciate your assistance.